Welcome. It's been a little while. It feels like you're my long lost. I haven't talked to you in forever.
Between the two of us, man, we're vacation and travel.
Whew. All right. Well, the good news is, the exciting news is, we're going to be moving to Wednesday nights because it just seemed like for me, Monday nights. So we're going to do Family Matters on Wednesday, same time, same place. We're going to do some things. I was just catching up with Kevin pre-game, and it's like, you know what, long lost buddies. We were just trying to catch up, but we're excited. The questions are still flooding in, so there's definitely a need for you, Kevin. And but anyway, yeah, we're moving to Wednesday nights. And same thing, go creep over Kevin W. Petersen on Instagram. He's got all kinds of information. It's been a while since I've been stalking you on Instagram, so I need to go back over there. ChronicHope.us. It's not going to, charge your credit card just by logging on. There's all kinds of free resources. There's a Chronic Hope Facebook page that they may be watching live on here. But anyway, all different types of ways to reach out to us. And if you want, keep the questions coming. We'll get to them. And you ready, Kevin? We got some good questions for you.
Let me get comfortable. I'm ready.
I'm past trying to stump you, so I don't think that's possible. But we'll. A lot of families need your advice here. I overheard my 16-year-old son say on the phone that he's doing K. I, of course, Googled it and see it is ketamine. Should I be worried?
Yeah, tremendously. Now that also might be kratom. Just so we're, we don't know that it's ketamine. But yeah, I would definitely say if your 16-year-old son is doing anything with the symbol K.
What about special K?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Other than potassium, So, not to make fun of this, I think the important thing is for you to immediately set up a situation where you're going to start setting some boundaries with him, and start drug testing him. And what Jay and I always talk about is when it's marijuana and alcohol, we tend to have more of a 30-day approach. Anything else, we have an immediacy approach. So if your son is doing something with K in it, I think it's important for you to take action immediately. I would take a look at some of my stuff and start setting boundaries. And the first boundary is no drugs, no alcohol, and that no boundary matters unless there's accountability. And the accountability behind that is drug testing immediately. And I would say ketamine is probably something you're going to need to go to a facility to get drug tested for. I don't know if a home test is going to cover that. But then there's got to be consequences for testing positive. And you don't have to ground him for life. That's not, because that's not effective and it doesn't work. But what you got to do is immediately say, hey, we're going to drug test you. If you come up positive, first of all, we're going to get you some help. Second of all, until you start testing clean, there's no social life, there's no phone, there's no car, and I just make it super clear and concise. And let's just get, the sooner you start, the better you can, because let me tell you something, things aren't getting better out there. That's for sure.
Well, the no phone, the one day maybe it's next week or something. We got, these kids and these phones, they're getting all the stuff. Snapchat, they're using social media. They're meeting people obviously in schools and being out and about, but it's at the local convenience store. It's good to be worried, and just so monitor phone. Snapchat, I can't tell you, nothing against that, social media, but kids, everyone I've come across, every family, every kid, say they're using Snapchat to get their stuff. So just a heads up.
Oh yeah, my sister that has two now 20-year-old, and they're girls in their 20s. Actually, my niece just graduated from Vanderbilt, and we got some comments, by the way. When my nieces had their, were in high school, et cetera, and my sister's like, "Hey, do you know what this Snapchat thing is?" I'm like, "No, tell me about it." And she described it to me. I said, "That just sounds like, pedophile and drug dealer paradise." So that just sounds like an all bad thing to me. So Gina Richardson says, "Hi, gives us some smiles. I love Gina. She's the coolest of the cool.
Ketamine, kratom. I mean, they're talking about being abused. Like they're abusing really anything. So
doesn't matter. And then Ben and Marissa's my pal. She said, I had no clue ketamine is an abused drug. Oh yeah, it is an abused drug. And ketamine is a horse tranquilizer. Let's just be really clear. That's where it came from. And now it is being used on a real limited microdosing basis to treat what's called TRD, treatment resistant depression. But that's not something you do at home. So
let's get right. This is I want to keep it going. I mean, there's another question that came. So I'm going to jump, but hopefully I'll be able to get back. But I was able to clean up my son's room this past week. He is 16. Well, I found an insane amount of empty Benadryl bottles and 5 to 6 cough medicine bottles as well. When asked, he said it's from the time he was sick. It's obvious. It's obvious what he's doing. And she wants she's concerned and said, like, this is obviously a abuse situation. So.
Yeah. So what do the kids call that? Triple C or something? And so this is one of those situations where you need to step in immediately, just like the previous one with the 16-year-old with ketamine. And this is one of those deals where, like Jay was just talking about, you got to have total access to the phone. You got to have total access to the room. Let's be clear. It's your house. It's your room. It's not his room. And so if you suspect that he's doing something like this, which, by the way, is incredibly dangerous, right back to what we were talking about before, hit those boundaries right off the bat. When I say boundaries, I mean, hey, new rules, my son, no drugs, no alcohol, and you will be drug tested. And, we're going to find out how to drug test you for these products. And we're happy to show you how. And then there's going to be consequences. And we will offer you help at the same time. So,
is there something on Chronic Hope or something? I know there's a big step with the parents, just when you said, implementing boundaries and talking with your son or daughter or anything, they get overwhelmed there. Like, is there anything as far as that initial kind of sit down talk that you can kind of advise?
Sure. I mean, how I always tell people to have the conversation, especially with teenagers, is you start off with, "You're my son and I love you. And I'm concerned about what's going on here. I found this stuff and it makes me nervous. And because of that, as your parent, I'm going to take responsibility and we're going to do this, And I want to be clear. One of the things that parents nowadays tend to struggle with is you don't need their acceptance. You don't need their approval. We're not looking for their approval. What we're looking for is for you to be a parent and lay it down and say, no, we're not doing this anymore. And, it's not important that you be your kid's best friend or buddy. It's important that you be their parent and be the one that's trying to establish good boundaries. And especially when it comes to drugs and alcohol, because we all know where that ends and it doesn't end well. So that's really but you sit them down and I always tell people, don't go in with a big stick. Don't be shaming. Don't be mad. Don't be punitive. You walk in and say, I love you. You're my daughter, my son, and I'm concerned about what's going on. And because of that, this is what we're doing. And they can argue and you can say, I love you. And the answer is no. And that's empathetic and clear and concise. But in these situations, that's what you got to have.
Love it. All right. I am depressed and feel like my husband's toxic verbal abuse is the reason I drank so much. So this is someone that has decided to take 4 months off from drinking. She said that there has been concern for drinking.
Sure.
So last 4 months, being a mother is stressful. So drinking allowed me to relax, questioning if I truly have a problem. So this is 4 months, 3 to 4 months sober, kind of in that gray area I always talk about, questioning, whether it really is a problem over husband's issues and being a mom.
Understand that definitely having a bad marriage, is definitely not helping, and being a mom is an incredibly difficult job, and there's a lot of stress involved there, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts. Totally understand that. So what I would say is I would highly recommend that you get some help. And by that, I mean, talk to somebody that is a licensed addiction counselor or a therapist that is schooled in addiction. And I would even say, take a shot at a few AA meetings and just see what you think. I'm not saying you got to sign up and buy the book and, drink the coffee. I'm just saying go and see if you associate and relate to the people there. And it's because when we talk about alcoholism, we're not talking about the amount you drink. We're not talking about when you drink. We're not talking about what makes you drink. What we're talking about is when you drink, that you drink uncontrollably. So once I start, I cannot stop or control the amount. I become unpredictable. And that's the thing we got to look for, is that when you do start drinking, does it become overwhelming and unpredictable? And if those things are what's going on, then we need to get you help. Now you may be what we call a hard drinker, that given a sufficient reason, like, hey, I need to knock this off, you can self-regulate. And that's great. Good for you. I don't know about Jay, but I can tell you for myself, the number of times I was like, man, I got to knock this shit off. The boss, the girlfriend, the parents, somebody had this, my friends said, you got to knock, the therapist. And I was like, it's too bad this is the last time we're going to see each other, because I'm not coming back to hear this crap anymore, but I tried to self-regulate and I couldn't self-regulate. So that's the thing that only you can answer. But you can definitely get some help from some people that are professionals in this arena. And then also I would say, check out a few AA meetings, see what you think, see if it makes sense. Read the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, see if that makes sense.
Amen. I swear, I think we should just put a microphone up to Kevin and just let him talk, because he kind of hits on like all the questions. So here's another one. My 19-year-old son just came back from college. It's that time of the year for the summer. He does not drink daily, but I realized that when he drinks, he gets out of hand. His grades dipped considerably from high school, and I know your ears just perked on that last sentence.
Gee, I know this story. I was actually watching a TikTok. Bert Kreischer?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it, but he's about 10 or 20 years ago, there was this article in USA Today about a guy that went to Wisconsin for 9 years and ran out of classes finally. And all my fraternity brothers were like, that guy's a sissy. You went for 12. And I was like, yeah, I know. But I think that was him. He was talking about that's how he got his start, is that there was an article on him that went national in the newspapers about how he'd been in college for like 6 years. I'm like, six? What the hell's 6? You're not even in the big leagues, baby. So anyway, back to this 19-year-old son. Anyway. As our good friend Duke Rumley says, most people that go to college for 12 years are called doctor.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. So I love the way you put it. He doesn't drink daily, but when he does drink, it gets out of hand. So that is definitely the first thing we look for in the world of alcoholism, okay, is that when you do drink, you drink uncontrollably. So, and then the next thing, this is perfectly laid out, his grades dipped considerably from high school. So if you look at the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous, it says we were powerless over alcohol. So what I'm seeing here is when he does drink, he gets out of hand. So that's powerlessness. And his grades dipped considerably. And his life has become unmanageable. So I would say, without knowing this person or knowing the specifics of the situation, he's probably someone that at the very least should start talking to a professional, and then also take a look at a couple of young people's AA meetings. And you'd be amazed, a lot of colleges have college recovery programs. So I would say to the parents that Access JRI will be happy to point you in the right direction, depending where he lives, where he goes to school. And obviously he's going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a problem. This is where you guys got to be like, so I want you to understand something. We're not paying for you to go to college and get C's. You can do that at home and go to junior college. Something my parents never said.
That sounds like personal experience. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was I had tricks up my sleeve. But I actually, when I got sober and went back to USC and was working for the university, I was doing financial work for the company, taking people's money. And I noticed this one family had not paid us for quite some time. And I called the mom and I said, hey, I'm just making sure everything's okay. And she's like, oh, sorry, I meant to call you. Yeah, she dropped out. I'm like, oh, okay. She goes, yeah, she was getting straight C's. And I was like, oh, you can get straight C's at junior college. I'm not paying that kind of money for you to get C's. And so she did. She went to junior college. And I was like, that is some good parenting right there. So the thing that you can do is set those boundaries and maybe say, hey, when you're here for the summer, there's no drinking. And you can start talking about how to monitor that, how to set that boundary, how to hold them accountable, and then also how to offer him a solution. Always, it's so critical to remember, you have to offer a solution and you have to offer help. If they don't choose the help, then you have the consequences. So there you go.
So what I can hear some families and kids screaming. I mean, what's the line between being a college kid and an issue?
Well,
you know what I'm talking about. They're saying,
yeah. Well, here's what I'm saying is that mom and dad, when you have someone living in your house, it's your house, it's your rules. You call the shots. So, if you're not comfortable with the amount he's drinking and he gets out of hand, you need to make it clear that I would say we're going to give you a couple of weeks to get it together. And, here's what we've noticed, and we need to sit down and have a family discussion about this. And by the way, I get these phone calls all the time. I get these phone calls from some parents saying, hey, my kid, I'm really worried about my kid. And then all of a sudden the kid calls me. He's like, my mom says, I got to come see you. And I'm like, well, I don't know if you got to come see me because I actually work with the families. I don't work with the individuals, but tell me what's going on. And I'm like, well, look, let's put it to you. Let me put it this way. Do you think you can go a week without drinking? And let's see how it works. And, and I realize you're going to go hang out with your buddies and go to the bars and go do all the parties and everything. But I just want you to prove to yourself that you can control the process. If you can't, then we can take the next step. So that's really how I would start that's how I would say, how do we know that? I would say, give them a chance to self-regulate. And if they can't, then we got to reel it in.
Here's a sign that I'm getting old. Like, I'm just shocked. Here's a 19-year-old and the mom and dad talking about when he drinks, it gets out of hand. I mean, I remember my mom and dad, they did their best, but they were anti-drinking, but they still let me in. That's another point. But anyway, it's just, I think sometimes I need to remind people the drinking age is 21. So anyway.
Yeah.
My daughter is going through her men's phase, and we appreciate her admitting her transgressions to us. I love the word transgression. That's hers. She told us that she needs to make amends to some of our longtime friends. Can we say no? So here's a family. Daughter's going through the men's process, probably has got a little time, sobriety on her time, going through the steps. If you don't know the steps, 9 steps is the making the amends, and here's mom and dad. I've got personal experience with this, kind of the fear around going to friends and admitting wrongs.
Great question. Great setup. Thank you. Here's the thing. The 9th step says we make amends whenever possible, except when to do so would injure or harm others. So what does that mean? So you're asking if she can say no. Now, if you're just ashamed of the fact that your daughter's sober, that's not a good reason. That's something you need to work through with your own professional and your own 12-step program. I would say it's more important to allow your daughter the opportunity to finish her amends. Now, that being said, situations, that caveat in amends is generally put there to be like, she's there to take responsibility for her behavior, not for yours or not for the family. So if there's something that would injure the family, and I don't mean injure in the sense of like everybody will know, that's not injury. Injury is more along the lines of, so the 4 of us broke into your cabin when we were 20, got drunk and totaled the place. And I'm going to come make amends, but I'm not going to tell you who I was with because I'm not here to rat everybody out. I'm here to take responsibility for myself. That's making amends and not injuring others. So I think it's important for you to understand that you have to take a look at it from that perspective. I mean, I would say, you know, you might want to talk to her and say, so what is it you're doing and why are you doing it? And then have her explain it. You may not like it because it's going to make, you know, you vulnerable. I mean, it's going to show part of your family system, but you just said these are longtime friends. They're going to love you no matter what. If she stole from them, if she broke things, if she created damage, it is her responsibility to take that on and deal with it. And if anything, those friends should probably be more along the lines of like, hey, I love the turnaround. I'll tell you, here's a story. I borrowed $500 from my dad had an employee, and his daughter and I were friends, and I used her credit card, and then I didn't pay her back for like 2 years. And, you know, it definitely pissed my dad off. It pissed this guy off. And I ended up paying her back, and I made amends to her. And she was like, I want to be clear with you. You maxed out my credit card. And that put me in a bad situation because I was on a vacation when I had an emergency, and my dad had to wire me money. And then I was like, oh, crap, you know. And so, you know, I had to make amends for that also. That was me taking responsibility. And I think that's really the theme of what we're talking about here with making amends. I want you to understand how critical making amends is in the 12-step process. We lose more people at this point because they don't make their amends, or they fiddle-faddle their way through it, or they just try to find the easier, softer way. Making amends is what really separates the adults from the children in recovery. So I would not impede her process.
Inventory and amends. All right, last question.
Really?
I've been married to an addict for 7 years. He's successful and pays all our bills on time. He snorts pills, never injects. I love him dearly when not on drugs, but we argue all the time. I am lost. And so here is a mid-20s or late 20s, I think, wife. I mean, got married young, loves him dearly when he's sober, struggles, fights all the time, refusing to get help. Kind of this says like, hey, I'm the man of the house, paying the bills, everything's good. So someone's just trying to get kind of insight into kind of, well, you married an addict. I think it's summed up in the first sentence.
Sure. So here's the thing I would say. I want you to read my book, Families in Addiction. I just really do. Because I totally understand what you're saying. This is when somebody then turns around to me and says, well, you know, he's a functional addict or he's a functional alcoholic.
She used that word.
I'm sure she did. And I want to be clear, there's no such thing. Because let's read the second half of the statement. I love him dearly when not on drugs, but we argue all the time. I am lost. That's not functional. That's not, things aren't working. Just because someone goes to their job and pays their bills doesn't make it okay. That's not a pass to use drugs and alcohol. You know, by the way, it's a progressive disease. It never gets better. It only gets worse, you know, so things are not going to get better. You're not going to be like, oh gosh, you know, remember 5 years ago when you were snorting pills and you were never using a needle? You know,
he never injects.
Yeah, but now, you know, so no, the answer is no. But I also want you to understand where I come from on this perspective. It's not about you getting him to change. It's about you changing. It's about you saying, you know what, you can keep doing that, but that's not something I'm going to be party to. I am not going to participate in this process. I am not going to participate in you doing drugs because you're killing yourself and you're killing our marriage. So I want, you know, here's the boundary. If you want to get sober, I'll help you get sober. If you don't, then we got to talk about what the next steps are. Straightforward, direct, easy. That's kind of how I roll. And I feel really strongly about that, you know.
That's kind of how this show rolls. I mean, like firing through 5-6 questions. I mean, I think just handing you a microphone, you basically answer all the questions. And it seems to think we're hitting the same themes. And so keep the questions coming. I don't care if you have the same question. You know, if you need to hear it a different way, just send us a message and we'll get to it. But always a good time, Kevin. You earned your paycheck today.
Well, good, since there isn't one.
You don't have to tell people that.
No, man, I do this for fun and for free. I'm happy to do it. It's fun, really.
Well, we have reached another point. We're going to do this every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. What is that? 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 Mountain,
Colorado.
all kinds of, So we'll see the replays too. So, comment. So.
All right, brother. It's good. Oh, hey. Oh, Andrea Himes. Let me tell you about Andrea Himes real quick. Andrea Himes and I met freshman year of college in 1982. She is a dear and a sweetheart, and you know what? I love her so much because through all of my antics and all of my drunk and crazy and stupid behaviors, she's still my friend. And I will be in her debt forever for that.
There's just something about you, Kevin Petersen. I mean, who could stay mad at you for very long? I mean, who can stay mad? So
there's some people.
Let's do this next week, Wednesday, and I will see you next week.
All right.